welcome to Bass Strategy. Today we are back out on the water and we are not alone. There are a lot of people out here on this little pond that I'm on today, and it's going to be a lot of pressure. Granted, a lot of them look like they're trout fishermen. They do stock this pond with trout, but there are other bass fishermen here. So looks like I'm going to be showing you all how to deal with heavy pressure on a small pond. So let's see what we can do out there. We got some late fall, heavy pressured fishing. Let's go. There we go. Small little bass. Little guy to start off the morning on the swim jig. There we go. Ooh, pickerel. Absolutely destroyed the swim jig, and when I went to get it out of its mouth, it refused to let go of the tail and ripped off my tail. Pickerel can be jerks. Go. Feels like a nice one. Yes. Whew. All right, guys, that's what we are after today. 4.65 pounds. Right on the lipless crankbait here. Let's let her go. Whew. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we're doing this morning. So like I said, there are a lot of boats on the water today. This is not a large pond, it's a pretty small pond. I'm counting 6 or 7 boats out other than mine on the water right now. Now a lot of them are trout fishermen. They must have just stocked this for the fall with trout, so luckily they're not all bass fishermen, but there are some bass fishermen out here, and just all that boat traffic is a lot of pressure on any fish in any body of water. So if you know you're going to be dealing with a lot of pressure on your pond, you should plan on doing something a little bit different than everybody else. And that's always my go-to plan. A lot of the places I go to, sometimes I'm lucky and I'm the only one on the water, but a lot of times I'm dealing with at least a few other boats. And depending on how big that pond is, it's going to be, you're going to want to separate yourself a little bit from the crowd. So around me, and I'm sure all around the country, people are throwing chatterbaits, bladed jigs a lot. It's one of the it's a lot of people's favorite technique. I don't throw that at all. I just don't want to be throwing the same thing as everybody else. But I do throw a swim jig, which is kind of a more finesse version of that. And there are days where I pay the price for not having the chatterbait. And sometimes I get outfished. But a lot of other days, I do really well on the swim jig. It's just something a little bit different. It's just a little more silent, finessey, and when there's a lot of boat traffic on the water and a lot of fishermen on the water, sometimes that noise and vibration can turn them off, and that's when you can really get them on a swim jig. So the other thing I've mentioned, I got a lipless tied on, and I've mentioned that a lot of people will start with a standard vibration, that high-pitched vibration, but I usually don't. I usually start either silent or with a one-knocker, anticipating that there's going to be pressure out on the water. Now, I actually started the day with this. This is the 6th Sense Quake, and it's their one-knocker version, the Thud. I did make that change over to this Jackall Tennessee disc knocker, still a one knocker, but I made this change and I made it to a flashy type. It's actually a smaller profile than the 6th Sense, and I actually tied it on specifically because I wanted to fish a little bit deeper outside the weed pockets, and this sits down on the bottom really well, and as soon as I move my rod tip and pick up the slack, it starts to rattle. So that's why I went with this one, and I caught that big fish on that. So another tip for you if you're dealing with pressure out on the water. Normally you usually like to cover water, but if there's a lot of pressure out there and a lot of other fishermen, I like to stay in a spot and fish it out for myself before I leave. I don't necessarily want to stay there all day long, but if I have a little bit more freedom, sometimes I will cover a little bit more water, I'll go through a spot, and then I will move and maybe later in the day go back to that spot. If there's a lot of traffic on the water, I can't do that. I will stay there and I will fish it until I feel like I've gotten everything I can get out of it, and then I will leave. Because as soon as you leave, if anybody saw you catch anything in there, a lot of times they're going to move in there and they're going to blow it out. Now, it helps in pressured ponds to really get to know what's going on and find a spot like I found that is not very obvious. It was a hump surrounded in 25-35 feet of water, and it came up to about 10 feet. If you can find a spot that's not very obvious, it's going to really pay off on days that you come out and there's a lot of other fishermen on the water. So hopefully those tips help you guys out when you're out and when you go out and there is a lot more traffic out there than you were hoping for. So let's see how many more fish we can catch today. There you go. That was a pickerel again. Oh, pickerel. Now that one gave me my lure back, so a little bit more polite than the last one. That last one completely mangled. Look at this poor swim jig. That's trash now. The skirt is torn up. The ripped off the tail. I can't get over that. You know, I had the fish. I have you. And I took the hook out of your mouth. Just open up your mouth and give me back. You know, it's common courtesy. That's all. Alright guys, that's all for today. You know, we didn't get a lot of bites out there, but we did get one quality bite and we were able to bring her in the boat. So that's a pretty good day out there. We ran into a lot more boat traffic than I thought. I did talk to a gentleman at the launch and he did confirm they just stocked last weekend this pond with trout. So that explains why there were so many other boats out here. But you know what? We were able to do things a little bit differently and still catch some fish. So if you like this video, give me that like and consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.